I have it in for your,
Okay.
so you can take it.
Okay. So we're reading from Bhagavad-gita as it is. Chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized, text 10. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Tamuvacha Rishikesha.
Tamuvacha Rishikesha.
Prahasanniva Bharata.
Prahasanniva Bharata.
Sinayorupayor Madhye.
Sinayorupayor Madhye.
Vishidantam Vidam Vacha.
Vishidantam Vidam Vacha.
Tamuvacha Rishikesha.
Tamuvacha Rishikesha.
Prahasanniva Bharata.
Prahasanniva Bharata.
Sinayorupayor Madhye.
Sinayorupayor Madhye.
Vishidantam Vidam Vacha.
Vishidantam Vidam Vacha.
Tamuvacha Rishikesha.
Tamuvacha Rishikesha.
Prahasanniva Bharata.
Prahasanniva Bharata.
Sinayorupayor Madhye.
Sinayorupayor Madhye.
Vishidantam Vidam Vacha.
Vishidantam Vidam Vacha. Okay. Tamuvacha Rishikesha.
Tamuvacha Rishikesha.
Prahasanniva Bharata.
Prahasanniva Bharata.
Sinayorupayor Madhye.
Sinayorupayor Madhye.
Vishidantam Vidam Vacha.
Vishidantam Vidam Vacha.
Tamuvacha Rishikesha.
Tamuvacha Rishikesha.
Prahasanniva Bharata.
Prahasanniva Bharata.
Sinayorupayor Madhye.
Sinayorupayor Madhye.
Visidantam Vidam Vacha.
Visidantam Vidam Vacha. Tam unto him,
unto him.
Uvacha
Uvacha
said, Rishikeshaha,
Rishikeshaha,
the master of the senses,
the master of the senses, Krishna,
Krishna, Pradasan,
Prasan,
smiling,
smiling,
Eva,
Eva,
like that,
like that,
Bharata,
Bharata,
O Dhritarashtra,
O Dhritarashtra,
yes, Dhritarashtra, descendant of Bharata,
descendant of Bharata,
Senayoho,
Senayoho,
of the armies,
of the armies,
Ubhayoho,
Ubayoho,
of both parties,
of both parties,
Madhye,
Madhya,
between,
between,
Vishidantam,
Vishidantam,
unto the lamenting one,
unto the lamenting one,
Idam,
Idam,
the following,
the following,
Vachaha,
Vachaha,
words.
words.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. Purport. The talk was going on between intimate friends, namely the Rishikesha and the Gudakesha. As friends, both of them were on the same level, but one of them voluntarily became a student of the other. Krishna was smiling because a friend had chosen to become a disciple. As Lord of all, he is always in the superior position as the master of everyone, and yet the Lord agrees to be a friend, a son, a lover for a devotee who wants him in such a role. But when he was accepted as the master, he at once assumed the role and talked with the disciple like the master, with gravity as it is required. It appears that the talk between the master and the disciple was openly exchanged in the presence of both armies so that all were benefited. So the talks of Bhagavad-gita are not for any particular person, society or community, but they are for all, and friends or enemies are equally entitled to hear them. Om Jnana Smirana Shantina Chakshurumilitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Staritamina Bhutari Swayam Rupa Kadama Yantadati Svapadantika Vanchakabandharuvischa Krivasavidevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavya. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare. Okay, so here we have Arjuna is finally figuring out that this is not going to work on his own, so he's surrendering to Krishna. He had some good arguments, you could say, on one level. He had a pretty good case against fighting for basic reasons. Right? One is, why are we engaging in this sin? Why is this is sinful, this is violence, why are we doing this? The other one is, the family, what is, it's gonna go back. And then another one is that it's not according to duty, it's actually improper. And the final one is that the whole society will actually suffer from it. So it's like he's expanding more and more. And actually you can see that he's looking at it from the perspective of the Varnas. Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya and Brahmana. And if you look at it from all those perspectives, it's wrong. But what he's forgetting is that Krishna. So we may have so many arguments, but ultimately it's up to Krishna what's going to happen. And you can see that from this perspective that he has in the first chapter, the result is that he kind of collapses. He can't even hold his bow straight, and this is the strongest fighter in the creation. He can't even stay upright. So he crumbles under that pressure of piety and consideration for growth or family and for all these things pertaining to the body. because he's a spirit soul, he's not the body. So actually, if you have that type of consciousness, you're in an artificial position. And that will drag energy out of you, that will bleed you dry for energy, and this is happening to Arjuna. So finally, he surrenders. This is one of the difficult words in this part of the world, the word surrender. Nobody wants to surrender. But it's not actually a matter of do you want to surrender or not. It's do you want to surrender to what? Because you will surrender. I mean, surrender doesn't mean like hands up surrender. It means taking shelter. So what are you taking shelter of? Are you taking shelter of your senses? Like Arjuna was saying, no, for my senses this is no good. Or your family, or your duty, or some kind of knowledge that you have. These are the 4 different layers of materialistic consciousness that you can have. But there's no question of not surrendering. I mean, everybody in this part of the world, they're surrendered to their senses. It's inconceivable to live in celibacy as I do, or we do. It's just not something that anyone considers, you know, because they're so much under the influence of their senses. So we humbly suggest, and Krishna here also humbly suggests, that you take shelter of him, you surrender to him, because he includes everything. He includes the senses, he includes the relationship on the bodily platform, he includes all your duties, and he includes all knowledge. So if all of these things that we otherwise want to take shelter of, we will get that anyway. It's not like we can't eat. Okay, sometimes on Ekadashi there's a little less, but that's it. And actually, if you're looking at it like that, that even increases the taste. You know, you say that absence makes the heart grow fonder. So I sometimes do like this liver cleansing thing, and you have to eat fruit and then not eat anything for almost a day and not even drink anything. And then you have to drink this magnesium sulfate mix, and it's salty, and you can't drink anything else, and it's just you're so thirsty. And so the day after, when the treatment is over, and you can start with a little glass of apple juice or something, just to get it. Oh my God, have you ever tasted apple? No, you haven't. Not until you've tried not going with any liquid for a day. And then you get, I was sitting by myself and I was laughing out loud in kind of a crazy way, like, ha 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 ha, because it was just so nice to, I've never tasted apple so clearly. Why? Because I was unable to get it, and then I got it, you know. So actually, that's how you enjoy your senses, is by controlling. So if you really want to enjoy your senses, you have to control. That's what people in the mode of goodness have understood. When we see those who are the maximum under the influence of their senses, they're not enjoying the senses anyway. You know, drug addicts, are they really enjoying the drugs? And that's one comedian I heard, he said, you know, that's why I never, ever, ever take drugs, is because when I do, it's so much more fun. You know, so the absence of controlling yourself, restraining yourself, that's actually what gives flavor in the material level. So that when we've had Nrsimha Chaturdashi and nobody's been eating and nobody's been eating the whole day, and maybe someone has even been fasting from water, and you have a big feast, it's like ecstasy, you know. So that's the point, is that if you surrender to Krishna, all these things are taken care of. The senses, we eat sumptuous prasadam, that's our secret weapon. The relationships, even, I mean, among devotees you have like spiritual relationships, but still, my relationship to my family is better now than it ever was before I became a devotee. So even those relationships that are actually material, it's a bodily relationship. I'm doing it because it's my duty, not because I'm getting it. But even that becomes better. And speaking of duty, the sense of duty becomes stronger because there's a point to it. There's something. It makes sense to do your duty because you're doing it for Krishna. If you're doing it for yourself, your focus will be on the enjoyment. What's in it for me, not on the duty actually, and you'll actually get less. So because it's for Krishna, then you're doing your duty. I was just in Norway and I was doing all these essays I was writing because it's my duty. I don't have to. I can just not. I could be on the internet the whole day watching movies, whatever. I could do whatever I want. Nobody's telling me, but it's my duty and it's for Krishna, so I'm doing it. So you're regulated and you're getting. That's the one Kadambakana Swami was saying that you don't. Bhagavatam doesn't only teach you how to become Krishna conscious. It also teaches you how to enjoy the material energy. Because that's actually how you get taste from it, is by not wanting it so much, by detaching yourself from it. That's a kind of a paradox. So this is why Krishna is smiling, O descendant of Bharata. At that time, Krishna, smiling in the midst of both armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. Is because finally, the dime dropped. He finally got it. No, you cannot do this on your own. So that's the strength of the Krishna consciousness movement, is that it's parampara, that this giving it. One thing is, like we were talking earlier today, that one thing is you can read all the books, but when you're studying under someone who gets it, then 90% of your misconceptions are taken care of by that person. So there's less work trying to figure out what does it actually mean. This because we see often devotees who may not have that training, that they cherry pick verses that fit whatever they want done, whatever opinion they have. They just find the verses that correspond with that, and they quote all those verses, and they neatly forget. Is it in context? Is it in a context that is actually about that topic? And they also neatly forget all the verses that point in a different direction, right? So actually what they're doing is they're making Prabhupada their servant. Prabhupada is serving their purpose rather than them serving Prabhupada's purpose. So here, Guru, jump through these hoops for me, and then validate whatever mental concoction I've come up with. This is a standard thing in our movement, based on simply on lack of training. And this is what Arjuna is not doing here, which is why he's in the book and so many other devotees, there's no book about them. So that's how it works. Actually, studies have been done on the oral tradition, which is like a tradition of India, of Egypt also, I believe, Mesopotamia or something, that they have this oral tradition of not writing it, but orally speaking it and practicing these mantras. And you actually found out that the oral tradition there are less mistakes made in the oral tradition than the written tradition. Because those who write down, they don't feel the necessity to remember all of it because it's written down. So when they do make a mistake, nobody notices. So every time someone writes it down, a little more mistakes come in, and before you know it, you have upper sampradayas, like West Bengal is like famous for all sorts of strange and wonderful variations of the philosophy, because it's just when you write it down and you don't have that discipline of the oral tradition, then it can go in any direction. So the oral tradition is very, very powerful. And that's what we have with the parampara. That's why Prabhupada says, surrender unto the bona fide spiritual master. He doesn't say surrender unto me. That's why, like the Ritviks, why doesn't Prabhupada just say surrender to me, if that's what he wanted? That would be much easier to write. No, he says the bona fide spiritual master, because it's not him. It's a living bona fide spiritual master. It can be anyone as long as he's bona fide. But it's not him, because he's not around anymore. So he can't correct these mistakes. That's what's so wonderful for these devotees who just surrender to Prabhupada, is that they can get anything they want out of it, Whatever opinion they have, they just cherry pick whatever verses. And it's the same thing that's happening if you see other systems of Vedic philosophy. You have these 6 systems, of which Vedanta is one. So the others are Nyaya and the Vaisheshika, and there is Patanjali's yoga system. There's Kapila's Shankya, and there's Patanjali's yoga, and then there is Karma Mimamsa. So all of these are actually tainted by materialistic consciousness. So you see that the other philosophies, except Karma Mimamsa, there are verses that they just don't deal with. They just do not deal with these verses because they come to a different conclusion than what they're looking for. So it's the same thing with the Rigvigs and whatever now. It's a feminist movement, and you have all these different varieties of Krishna consciousness where you emphasize a specific area. They all have that same flaw, that there are just some verses that they can't deal with, so they just choose to ignore them. That's not how it works, you know. You can't just, you can if you want to, but if you want to be concise, if you want to be trustworthy, if you want to be according to parampara, if you want to please Prabhupada, you can't do that. You have to deal with everything, you know. So that's what's being illustrated here, is that Krishna is very happy because he says it very clearly. Arjuna here a few verses back, right? It's a famous verse. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of my silly weakness. In this condition I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrender unto you. Please instruct me. That's pretty straightforward, you know. We have difficulty doing that. Every time it comes up regularly that our false ego just won't let us do that. You know, it's just completely full surrender. And the fun part is that it's something that we very often glorify others. Like when we hear this verse, it's glorious actually. When we see others who are just so surrendered to Guru, it's glorious. It's one of the things that we celebrate about Prabhupada. That was that he may not have had many encounters with his Guru, but his instructions just became his whole life. Very simple, basic instructions. Print books, preach in the West. And now we have ISKCON. Why? Because he was fully surrendered. You know? So from the intellectual point of view, it's very easy to see the strength in that surrender, because what it means is you're not getting in the way of Krishna. That's the thing, that with the parampara, the chit potency, that knowledge potency, is actually flowing directly from Krishna through the parampara. And the more we surrender to that, the more we put ourselves in line with that, the more potency we will have, the more transcendental it will be, the less we will be getting in the way with our mind and all our issues. So that's Kapila, the real Kapila, not the Shankya Kapila, but the real Kapila, who's in Bhagavatam. His point is that that's the highest. He's talking about all the creatures. Like you have living entities who are in inanimate objects like jewels or mountains. There can actually be a jiva in those. And then above that, of course, are living entities who have some kind of life symptom, like a tree or a blade of grass or something. And beyond them are those who have developed like senses. So you have the sense of taste, and then you have the sense of smell, and then the ability to see shapes, and it goes up until you have the multi-legged animals, and then you have the animals with 4 legs, and then you have the humanoid form, which is the topmost. And those, the Brahmanas, the top, and those, the top, you have different levels of Brahmanas who study the Vedas, who know how to apply the Vedas, who knows how to apply it and convince others about the Vedas and so on. But the highest is the one who is a pure devotee, who has no separate interest from the Lord. Does that make sense? Now, whatever interest you have is just the Lord's interest. There's no political agenda. There's no, oh, the GBC meetings are coming up, we have to push this point, or we have to prepare. That's not how they work. They're just working with the here and the now. There's no separate mind from the Lord. That's the pure devotee. That's the full surrender. That's what Arjuna is becoming here throughout the Gita. And that's why he can fight like he can in the end, because it's not about sin, it's not about how the family feels about it, it's not about duty or not. These are all things that will fall into place when we surrender to Krishna. Because Krishna decides what's pious, Krishna decides what's duty. It's all about Krishna. But if we see these things as separate, it may be pious, it's still sinful. Because we're not seeing the connection to Krishna. Does that make sense? That you can have a very pious person who's doing it all for himself. He's getting really good results because he's nice, and it's just for himself. I had a story I met, I'm not going to get into detail, but I just met one of these very pious people recently, and he was kind of a little bit cheating me, because there was some material I had that I couldn't give out, because there's a person who gave it just for me. And he was using his phone to take pictures of it so he could have it also. But he was being so nice and pious about it that I couldn't really get myself to stop him, you know. So what is piety? You know, is it being nice? Is it being clean? Is it being, well, I mean, on one level it is, but it's only pious if it's for Krishna. Why clean? Because Krishna likes it. Not because you can get the promotion and you can get more money and stuff like that. You can use it like that, but that's not actual piety, you know. Actual piety is doing it for Krishna. So that's what we always have to remember. That's what we always have to end at that point. Before that, as long as we end there, we can go from anywhere. It doesn't matter. Like the smartest, they think that you have to take birth in a Brahmana family. You don't. You just have to do it for Krishna. That is Brahminical. So it's different between being a Brahman and being Brahminical. Brahminical is a state of mind. Brahman is a varna. It's a job. So very few of us are Brahmins, you know, because we're just, look where we're born. It's not exactly a Brahminical society. So the ability to just work with Brahminical things as an occupation, that's rare that you can do that. But if you offer whatever you do to Krishna, then everything is Brahminical anyway. Does that make sense? That you're